Welcome back to Big Riff Energy. This is episode 42. It is December 19th. This will be the last episode of the year. Not really because of the holidays. I'm not really a holidays kind of guy. In fact, they are pretty aggravating because I like to get stuff done, and good luck getting anything done for the last 2 months of every year, which seems to be getting worse every year since the Great Plague. But no, I've got I have a mission. I have a new mission over the next few weeks. I am fine-tuning a batch of demos for a new project that I've been working on for the past few months. And on Christmas Day, I am delivering said demos to my first choice for prospective labels to release this shit. And we're going to go from there. Trying to get a record deal. Haven't done that in a while. It's got me feeling all nostalgic and stuff. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But I will say this will be the last time you hear me talk about it at all until you guys hear music. No matter what happens, I'm going to be putting out some new music with a new project next year. And man, one of my biggest pet peeves is lots of talk and no action. So I try to do the opposite. Lots of action and no talk. But I will talk a little bit about it at some point in this episode if I remember. Never before have I struggled more with this podcast trying to figure out what the hell to talk about. I have some emails I'm going to get to. I do want to mention right off the bat the passing of Cale Sane. Really, really great drummer. I met Cale when he was playing with Misery with a Z, probably back in 2016 or 17. Always liked seeing him. He always had a good vibe. I think the last time we hung out was Aftershock Fest in Sacramento, 2019, probably October. And man, he was always just really, really nice and fun to be around. He played for a ton of bands. My thoughts are with all of his bandmates and all his friends. He had a ton of bandmates and a ton of friends and a lot of people who really loved him. And man, my heart goes out to everybody that was connected to that guy, which is a lot of people. Yeah, I highly recommend. My favorite band that he played with is Misery, by far. Saw those dudes in Tucson back in the day. I really recommend the record Absolute Light, which I think came out in 2016. And man, those guys blew me away live. Taylor, the guitar player, is actually probably one of my favorite guitar players of the modern era. Very, very unique. I was just kind of revisiting some Misery stuff earlier today. And came across an interview with Jose, the singer, who I've done a somewhat decent job of staying in touch with. And, you know, he was describing Taylor, the guitar player, as just kind of like a mad genius. Really had his own style, man. That was sort of the first band that I heard bringing back the super heavy chorus effect on guitar. Like over the top chorus effect on guitar. But what a great, unique band. I would call them like a crossover band. I don't know, somewhere between like old Suicidal Tendencies or I don't know. There was even like some Rage Against the Machine vibes. Just really cool. And then the guitar playing was, you know, I talked to Taylor about it. Everything from like Steve Vai. I heard some Alex Lifeson from Rush, you know. And then Cale is just an animal behind the kit. Just really, really powerful drummer and powerful personality. Like I said, he played on a ton of records, played for a lot of different bands. He was playing with Twitching Tongues most recently. I love those dudes as well. And yeah, my heart goes out to everybody that was close with him, man. And we lost a real one, 31 years old, dude. It just... People just do not stop dying. I don't know what the fuck it is, man. But it's, we can all feel it, I think. And, you know, I think that situation sort of is going to inform this episode, and it just sort of has informed this whole year for me, man. It's been a challenging year, and I want to say something. I'm a huge fan of the Theo Von podcast. I feel like he's the standard for podcasting, so I pay attention to what he does, and it's so interesting. He'll talk to people that I couldn't have less interest in, like talking to Kat Von D. I was like, there's no possible way that I will find this interesting or cool at all, and it was great. But he said something during that episode about, he's like, most of the time I'm good. Most of the time I'm fine. We talk a lot on these podcasts about mental health challenges and struggles and how to be better and how to get through each day and, find joy and stuff like that. And maybe it gives off the impression that we're struggling more than we are. But I thought that was cool that he acknowledged that. He's like, most days I'm totally fine. And I think I could say the same thing. Most of the time I'm like totally fine. It has been a challenging year. And I'm not real big on New Year's resolutions and holidays and stuff like that. It does not suit my life to think in terms of like, I'm going to do this once this arbitrary calendar year thing flips over to the next year. I go 24 hours at a time. Sometimes I have to go like 1 hour at a time. Sometimes I have to go like 1 second at a time, but I can't zoom out much more than 24 hours. So I'm not real big on, oh man, this year is going to be my year, or this last year sucked, or anything like that. It's just days. It's just minutes, compounding over time. But I think that it is maybe useful during this time of year to reflect. We break our lives up into sections, and a year is one of those sections that we use to kind of gauge things, or, we can reflect back on the past year and maybe learn from things and look forward and maybe look at ways that we can improve, but I've been thinking about 2023, whatever that means. And yeah, it's been one of the more challenging years of my life. But then I think back to 2013, 2014, the last couple of years, when I was really in the dark days of the whiskey era. And those years were a lot worse and a lot harder, and there was a lot less accomplished, if I'm being real. I gotta, there's a thing called recency bias, where whatever happened, what have you done for me lately, right? So 2023 seems challenging in retrospect because it just happened. But I think back to 10 years ago, things were a whole lot worse. And I think it's important for us, especially around this time of year, to avoid measuring ourselves to some imaginary ideal, and maybe just look back on our own self and see in what ways we've improved, or maybe what ways we still have more room to improve. Like I said, I was struggling trying to come up with ideas for shit to talk about on this podcast, and it shows. But yeah, man, when things are, I talk about all action, no talk. And when things are kind of flying out of control, I do something about it. Period. I just force myself, no matter if I'm motivated to do something about it, no matter if I feel like it, I just try to do something about it. And went on this little spirit journey a few months ago to go see Tyler Childers in Colorado by myself. It was like a much needed realignment, reassessment of things that were going on. I spoke to some very important people in my life, some people whose advice and wisdom that I take to heart, who I know are looking out for me. And I had the idea of doing a new project. Like, I had a specific goal in mind eventually for something to do that I just, again, music that I wanted to hear that I don't hear being made. And I went on that little spirit journey a few months ago, had some important conversations and decided it was time to start doing that. Obviously, I'm still writing Spirit Adrift songs, still working on Spirit Adrift. But there is going to be a shift over the next few weeks to try to lock up a record deal, man. And like I said, it's got me all nostalgic, and it's exciting, and it's, you know, you alternate, or at least I do. One day I listen to what I'm doing and I think, man, I might be a genius. And but then most days it's like, I'm a complete fraud and this sucks. You go back and forth from those two extremes, you know, and you can't let it stop you from just working. You just got to put the work in. Anyway, what the hell am I talking about? I don't know. It's just with another young, gifted, funny, bright, intelligent, lovable person dying way too soon, man. It just it makes you think. And we're in some kind of pandemic still, and not just the virus, but I just wonder, I don't know if anybody's even like keeping track of this data, but I just wonder what the numbers look like when it comes to mental health related deaths and substance abuse related deaths and stuff like that. And I imagine it's staggering. And man, I don't know what needs to be done to straighten things out. Maybe that's just the resonant waves of a really traumatic global event that we all went through, you know. I think especially for people that hadn't gone through something as traumatic or difficult as the pandemic, like if that was the first big thing. And I'm not saying this about Kale or anybody specifically. I'm just speaking in general terms. I don't know him well enough. And even if I did, there's no fucking way I'd be commenting on a person's personal situation like that. So right now I'm just speaking in general terms. It just seems like we're dealing with the ripple effect of like a giant earth-shattering situation. And for people that maybe hadn't dealt with anything that difficult or challenging or traumatic, I think it's really tough to recover from something like that. And yeah, I got an email from a dear friend of mine in Arkansas named Dan, who could easily be one of these statistics, one of these untimely deaths, one of these excess deaths, gone too young, however you want to refer to it. And it just, it got me thinking about this whole deal again. So I'm going to get to that a little bit later when I get into the emails. But I do think that, you know, despite the fact that I'm sort of anti-holiday and anti-celebrating weird, arbitrary passages of time, I do think it's useful to review and to sort of plan ahead for how to not die next year, basically. You know, this year was weird, man. High highs and low lows. Pretty severe back injury for me towards the beginning of the year. Honestly, quite a bit more serious than what I've let on publicly or even to people in my personal life. So there was a lot of dealing with that. Man, that shit will get you down. You know, physical and mental health is the most important thing, period. If you have that, you're doing good. If you're alive and you're healthy, or even have like a semblance of health, you're doing good. I think we all take that for granted a little too much. But yeah, dealt with that injury, got on pain pills, which is fucking scary in my position. Got off of pain pills, got back on pain pills, got back off of pain pills. So that, you know, there was a struggle all throughout the year in that regard. I can say I didn't abuse them, didn't get fucked up, didn't fuck my life up. So that's good. The back situation is good now. Relatively speaking, definitely a lot better than it was. I'm in the bad stuff of 2023 right now. A lot of people dying again. You know, that seems to be the story arc of of my life at this juncture. It's just like, and I don't know, probably a lot of you are experiencing that as well. A lot of people dying, friends and family members, everything else. People in the process of dying. So that's tough. That's definitely, and it's done something to me to really hammer home my own mortality. And I think I've always sort of internalized a little bit more than your average person that I'm going to die someday. But I think over the course of the past year, it's been hammered in real hard. Like it's a very concrete understanding of the fact that I'm going to die, which doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. I think it lends a little sense of urgency to each day, to make each day count, try to help as many people as I can, help myself, get myself into a situation and a mindset and an emotional state where I can be of service to other people and contribute something to the world, you know? So yeah, the constant death, I don't know if that's necessarily a good or a bad thing. It just is life. I was watching an interview, or I think I was just listening to an interview with Josh Silver from Typo Negative a few months ago, and it was around the time they were working on World Coming Down. I think he was talking to a dude in France or somewhere, and the guy was like, well, your last record was all about like love and sexy stuff and stuff like that, and this one's all about death. And Josh is like, yeah, well, I think with the last record, Peter was having a lot of sex, and with this record, everybody was dying. Like everyone in his life just started dying. And I looked to see how old those dudes were at the time of the interview, and I believe Josh Silver was exactly 35 years old, which is the same age as me right now. And he told the interviewer, he was like, you know, you're young, so you're not going to have to deal with this for a while, but once you get to be about our age, people just start dying. And I guess it's comforting to know that that's just what happens. And we all deal with it. We all deal with losing people, and we all deal with eventually our own demise. The weakest, most sissified motherfuckers that ever lived have dealt with dying. So it can't be that bad, I guess. So the good aspects of 2023, did some killer tours, put out, in my opinion, easily the best record that I've ever been a part of. And I believe that wholeheartedly, knowing the amount of work that went into it. And just even the rare occasion where I will listen to it. I don't listen to my own records when they're done, period. It's a weird, excruciating thing, and there's something wrong with you if you can sit there and listen to your own music like that. But when I hear it, I'm very proud of it. I am 100% confident that it's the best record that I've ever been a part of, Ghost at the Gallows. So that was cool. Made a lot of new friends, man. Played some big ass festivals. That was cool. And you know, the one thing I've been thinking about this whole year, I have a friend who lost his mother and played the Super Bowl halftime in the same year. And that's just life. That's life right there. That's it. Things are never just going to be all great, and things are never just going to be all bad. You know, it's just peaks and valleys, man. So yeah, that's pretty much it. What are we going to do next year? You know, I have very high standards for myself. I'm a perfectionist. I'm very hard on myself. I don't know if hard on myself is the right thing. I just have high expectations. And, you know, I've done New Year's resolutions in the past and that sort of thing. And a lot of times it'll be pretty lofty aspirations. And a lot of times I think it'll be misguided in the sense that some of it is dependent upon external factors. And you're wasting your time if you're setting any kind of goals that are dependent upon anything outside of your own self. You know, we have to stay out of the results business. There's a sacred text that talks about how we are only entitled to our work, our labor. We are only entitled to our own labor. We're not entitled to the fruits of our own labor. In other words, like if you're working your ass off with this expectation that you're going to reap some kind of benefit, when the reality is that nobody owes you anything and the universe doesn't owe you anything, even if you work hard enough to earn it, you're going to be disappointed. The only way to be sane and satisfied is to look at the work itself as a reward, right? We are only entitled to our labor, not the fruits of our own labor. So resolutions, literally my only New Year's resolution at this point, don't die. Don't die. I was in a meeting the other day. I go to meetings in order to maintain my sobriety, which we'll talk about a little bit later with my friend Dan, who only through the grace of something beyond himself is still here with us. But I heard in a meeting the other day, the most important part of sobriety is not dying, which is like sort of a morbid joke by the person that said it. But I was thinking about that for the rest of that day. And I was like, man, in times like these, maybe for those of us who are hard on ourselves and expect a lot of ourselves, maybe we should strip it back down to basics, because it's not a given these days, even for young folks, even for folks that seem super vibrant and full of life. It's not a given to just say, today I'm not going to die. So I think number one, New Year's resolution for all of us, don't die. And if you're listening to this, that means that you had a better year than a lot of other people did, because you're not dead. So don't take that for granted. I think about that shit every day, man. Just having lost so many people before their natural time should have come, All right, that's it, man. New Year's resolution, don't die. I guess another one would be keep writing songs and help other people as much as I possibly can. I'm going to get to emails. First of all, I'm going to say there's not going to be an episode, like I said, for a couple of weeks. And this is a really sketchy time of year for people not fulfilling the resolution that we've all established of not dying. So if you're feeling squirrely, do not hesitate. If you've got other people, reach out to them. But if you're feeling squirrely and you want to reach out to me, write me an email, bigriffenergy@gmail.com. Don't die. Even if you want to, just write me an email first or talk to somebody first. You don't have to die. I'm sick and fucking tired of people dying, man. Andrew wrote me an email. Hey, Nate. I'm a guitar gear hoarder, but I've had to make some deals over the years to upgrade. I always wonder if anyone is using my old gear to do anything interesting. So I thought I would let you know this, just in case your brain operates like mine. You sold me an HM2 many years ago via Instagram. For those of you who don't know, an HM2 is a guitar pedal. It is what is referred to as the chainsaw tone. Andrew continues, I use that very HM2 for some quiet quad tracking to spice up guitars on a new record. Check it out below if you're curious. No hard feelings if you're not into the soft stuff glacial pace. Andrew, have you heard some of the music that I've made? Of course I'm into it. So Andrew's band is called Oldest SEA. And from what I can tell, it's Andrew and his wife. You guys have the same last name. So that's an assumption, but yeah, so it's really good. I put it on. I'll always listen to at least one song when you guys send me stuff. Go check it out. Oldest SEA and then the number 1. So OLDESTSEA1.bandcamp.com. The song that I heard is really, really good. I'm going to listen to the rest of it. I think I listened to These Machines Made Us Old or some shit like that. I can't remember. I noticed that it's mastered by Dan from Cruciamentum. He's good at that. It sounds really, really good. I would say this stuff is for fans of Sub Rosa. You guys remember Sub Rosa? Great band. A couple of them got that new band, The Keening. Yeah, for fans of Sub Rosa, instrumentally, at times it reminds me of Loss from Nashville. It's like really slow, tragic doom metal, but the guitar tones are almost kind of death metal-y. Hence the HM2 for some quiet quad tracking, you know? Really tragic, spooky female vocals. It's really good, man. It's really good. I highly recommend it. I am going to reveal the biggest secret of death metal guitar tone that they don't want you to know. I was talking to a friend of mine about this just the other day. I've been conflicted on whether or not I should make this public knowledge, but I'm going to. Andrew, I bet you paid a pretty good amount of money for that Japanese HM2 that I sent you. I know that there are boutique guitar pedal manufacturers charging hundreds and hundreds of dollars for the chainsaw guitar tone. I believe what happened is I was having a conversation with Sanford Parker. I overheard something he was saying about Behringer being real sketchy with like going and basically snatching up any synthesizer or effects pedal circuits that are not patented. And so then I got to thinking, well, I wonder if they got the HM2 circuit. They did get the HM2 circuit. And I mean the old Japanese, proper, old school Boss HM2 death metal circuit. People pay, I don't know, $200, $300, $400 for this thing, right? And various offshoots of this circuit. You can go to Amazon.com or Sweetwater.com. Buzz Osborne from the Melvins loves using pedals that you can buy on Amazon or at Guitar Center. If something goes wrong on tour, you can just 24-hour delivery, the same exact pedal, you know. Amazon.com, Sweetwater.com. The Behringer, what the hell is it called? It's hot pink. Behringer death metal pedal. Yep, it's heavy metal. HM 300 Behringer. It's $30. I got wind that this was the exact circuit from the old Japanese Boss HM2, so I bought one, took it to Gate Creeper practice. People saw this hot pink plastic piece of shit $30 pedal, wanted to shoot it down immediately, understandably so. Plugged it in, cranked it up. Amazing. I used that pedal for the last year or two that I was in Gate Creeper. It is literally a Boss HM2 Japanese old school circuit for $30. There's my biggest death metal guitar tone secret. Thank you for sharing your music, Andrew. oldestc1.bandcamp.com. Really cool stuff. Really cool stuff. Highly recommended. Some of it reminds me a little bit of Eye of Every Storm Neurosis, Eye of Every Storm era, Sun That Never Sets era, right? I think I don't like Chelsea Wolfe's music at all, but I think if you like Chelsea Wolfe's music, you probably like this. I think this is like the same kind of appeal, maybe just done in a way that's cool, that doesn't suck, in my opinion. So thanks, Andrew. Steve, since you were talking about Queens of the Stone Age on your recent show, I was wondering your thoughts on related bands like Caius, Fu Manchu, Sun and Sail Club, Desert Rock in general. Also, would love to hear your opinion of Sun and Sail Club's first album, Mannequin. If you don't know it, it's very unique. Hey, Steve. I think Queens of the Stone Age is the best out of all of those bands. As far as Desert Rock, the only band that I listen to that plays that shit is Caius, because I feel like every other band that's done it is just kind of an inferior version of Caius. In fact, I really only listen to Sky Valley. I just feel like that's the... I don't listen to that kind of music all that much, but when I get the urge to, I don't feel the desire to listen to anything that's not Caius, because to me, they're the best. And I think that's true of a lot of subgenres of that kind of music, like Church of Misery to me. Like if I'm going to listen to something like Electric Wizard or Sleep or whatever, the Sabbath worship, I'm going to listen to Church of Misery because they make me feel more excited, and they just put that stank face on me way more than any of those other bands. Same deal with Caius. I do remember back in the illegal downloading days, all the Desert Sessions albums, and a lot of those songs ended up becoming properly recorded Queens of the Stone Age songs. Some of that shit was really goofy and not good. And dude, some of the Queens of the Stone Age music is really goofy and not good. Make It With You is like one of those old Desert Session songs. We walked out. We went outside when they were playing that the other night. The song sucks. But yeah, I haven't heard Sun and Sail Club. I'll check that out. But yeah, desert rock. I'm trying to think if there's another desert rock. I don't know, like Elder. Do they sort of have like that desert rock influence? They're good. But yeah, I don't really listen to Fu Manchu. I like Monster Magnet. I think you could throw them in there, maybe. Excuse me. No, Caius, Sky Valley, man. Why would you listen to anything else? That being said, I will check out Sun and Sail Club. Oh, also in response to the last episode, a lot of people were positing ideas for the last rock star, and many of you said Matt Pike from Sleep and High on Fire, which I agree with you. That dude has the rock star thing for sure. His brain is just like an antenna for chaos in the best possible way. However, he is 1 year older than Josh Homme, believe it or not. So he doesn't count. Somebody said Kanye. And I think that is the most valid answer that I got. And if that infuriates you, I'm sorry. You should go watch that documentary that Netflix did on him. It's really cool. It's really, really compelling. And for better or worse, I think Kanye qualifies. If you forgot what the parameters are, go back and listen to my personal parameters for what constitutes a rock star. And yeah, for better or worse, that dude checks pretty much every box. Dan, my old friend Dan from Fayetteville, Arkansas. Dan wrote me a lengthy email. We exchanged numbers. We're going to check in with each other over the holidays because it sounds like Dan's getting his ass kicked this year like the rest of us. So Dan said a lot of different stuff, and I asked him if it was cool if I sort of like shared on our story and our background. He said absolutely. I'm going to refer to him only by his first name. Dan and I ended up working at a bar together in Fayetteville, Arkansas. I'm not going to mention the name of the bar. Anyone that went there will know what I'm talking about, but just publicly, you'll see why I don't want to mention the bar by name. I don't want to get anybody in trouble. But so Dan, we talked about physical and mental health and stuff like that. And Dan said, I've been alcohol free for going on 13 years. That's hard to believe. And weed free for 6. The fact that I quit booze while working at the bar really freaks people out. But I tell them that like going to the gym, the workout doesn't start till the muscles start to burn. And working in a bar while quitting drinking was like feeling the burn all night long. Dude, especially at this bar. Holy shit. He said, it made me stronger. I don't do weight training. My joints are pretty rough after all the years of kayaking. And my bike accident back in 2017 really put the old bod through some trauma. But I am back on the bike, and between Zwift and outdoors, I've been averaging 3,000 miles a year for the last several. You're walking across the damn continent, Daniel. Purposeful perspiration makes me feel good. I know you get it. Anyway, man, thanks for being an inspiration. I treasure our fuck up nights closing the bar and having deep conversations about music and life. You are the man. Dan, you are the man. So I'm going to tell our story. Yeah, Dan mentioned his bike accident at 17. He fell off a fucking cliff, basically. It's a wonder you're still with us, Dan. I'm glad you are. So this ties into sort of the theme I was trying to dig at throughout the course of this episode, just like losing people too young. And I could easily be one of those people. Dan could easily be one of those people. And I think that I think you're the first guy that I saw beat that. And you're the first guy I saw that I thought was a total goner that figured out a way to survive. And I think it's so important to, I know this is like a fucking heavy metal podcast or whatever. But I think this is a cool platform to actually, try to help people and help ourselves. That's a cool thing about podcasting. All my favorite podcasts, they'll be goofy as hell. They're about some sort of arbitrary subject or whatever. But this art form has such a freedom that you can get into like really important stuff that can, make a difference, as corny as that is. So Fayetteville, Arkansas, would have been 2007, I guess, maybe 2008. I want to say I was 19 years old. That sounds right. This bar opens. There's one little cool pocket of Fayetteville where the University of Arkansas is. I've talked about it before. Dixon Street in the square, and there's like a little offshoot of Dixon Street. And this bar opened, and it was like the new cool thing. It was very well branded, and the vibe was like firmly established from the get-go. This is not a douchey college bar. This is like a, dare I say, sophisticated Southern vibe. It had just a vibe, man. And of course, everybody wants to go there. And Dan was the doorman at the time. Pretty intimidating guy. If you didn't know him. If you know him, he's a sweetheart. If you didn't know him and you're 19, trying to sneak into the bar, kind of intimidating. Not the guy that you really want to fuck around with. For whatever reason, I watched Dan do his job all day long. And for whatever reason, at some point, shortly after this bar opened, I think we must have struck up a conversation or something. And I think that it was understood that I was not some dumbass college kid that was going to come in there and disrespect the place. But for whatever reason, again, this is all for entertainment purposes. These are hypothetical situations that may or may not have even actually occurred in real life. The names and likenesses have been changed. But for whatever reason, Dan let me in this bar. And really, I don't know, maybe we snuck past him, but I kind of don't think so. I remember actually like talking to this guy before I ever went in there. And, on his part, that wasn't a mistake, because I got thrown out of plenty of places. I got thrown out of public and private and people's homes and Buffalo Wild Wings and all kinds of shit in Arkansas. But I never once was involved in any sort of controversy or disrespect in this bar. This place was like my home. And so Dan really didn't make a mistake technically by letting me in. Although the legality of the decision is controversial. So yeah, this place really became like a second home to me. I was friends with Dan. The owners of the bar were ever present. They were there like every day. They weren't, operating the business from the shadows, depending upon other people's labor. Like, this place was a labor of love. Felt like a family. I knew all the owners. I knew everybody that worked there. A friend who I made at this bar, oddly enough, introduced me years later to the person that became my wife in Phoenix, Arizona. The amount of like significance in my life that this place had, it would take many, many episodes of this podcast to tell all the stories and beautiful and crazy things that happened in this place. You would walk in the middle of the day, they're playing Hank Williams Sr. or like some old jazz from the 30s or something. It was just a cool ass place. Super cool. During the day, it was just real relaxed and welcoming. Just the opposite of like douchey college vibes. The owners, like I said, would always be in there. And then at night, they had a little tiny stage where they would have bands and stuff. I mentioned on a previous episode, my last band in Arkansas, playing a ZZ Top cover set on Halloween. This bar is where we did that. So many incredible memories in this place, man, and friendships that I still value today. And I ended up working at this joint. I'm going to backtrack. I've been going in this bar this is one of my favorite memories of Arkansas. I've been going to this bar for a year and a half, 2 years at this point. Along comes my 21st birthday. And by this time, I'm a fixture in this place. There's a drink order named after me. They had the Nasty Nate. I'm pretty sure they came up with it. It was probably a half a glass of Evan Williams and a Sprite back. That was what I got every time I went in this place. So I walk in this joint on my 21st birthday, wondering how this is going to go down, because it's been an unspoken thing this whole time. And I'm like, okay, we're just not going to talk about how old I am. I go in here with my girlfriend at the time. We sit down. Everybody in there is looking at me, kind of grinning. What's going on? Oh, it's my birthday. Yeah, how old are you, motherfucker? Like, everybody already knew. I've been going to this place for 2 years. So yeah, I love this place. I still do. So many memories in there. So many great bands. Heavy bands, bluegrass bands, solo country sets, just all the best music that came through town came to this spot. And I ended up working at this joint, running sound, which was essentially just, like an 8-channel mixer, a couple microphones, a couple piddly speakers. All they ever mic'd in the spot was vocals and maybe kick drum once in a while. But it was a free. I was gonna be there regardless, so this is just an excuse to be there, not pay for anything, and make money. I mean, for a 21, 22-year-old, couldn't ask for a better life, honestly. And like Dan mentioned, we would close a bar out. It was a whiskey bar specifically. So if you know anything about me, that's trouble. I remember like the DJ, Dan the Automator. I think he did some shit with the Gorillas or something. He came in there one night and they opened up like a $1,500 bottle of scotch or something. Probably not scotch, probably, Tennessee whiskey. But yeah, we would just close that place out, be there till 4 or 5 in the morning, just bonding, man. So what ended up happening inevitably is somebody got pancreatitis, and that somebody was Dan. And I didn't even really know what pancreatitis was at the time, but it became evident that this dude was going to die. And I think Dan, I don't want to speak too personally about you, but I remember it taking a while for you to be able to stop. And everyone was just certain that you weren't going to make it. And I've already been talking about this long enough, so I'm just going to say Dan made it. Dan wrote me a fucking email last week, man. Dan is listening to this episode of the podcast. And Dan, you're alive and you're healthy. And God damn it, I've seen it go the other way so many times. Usually it goes the other way. The vast majority of the time it goes the other way. But I'm so glad, man, that it didn't for you. And you have no idea how much it means to me to this day to hear from you and to just remember you surviving pancreatitis from alcohol, dude. Because I was in the same boat. Not that long after you, I'm in the same boat. And dude, you better believe it that you're one of the people that was in my mind as like a lighthouse to get through that, So I love you, man, and I'm glad you're still here. And yeah, going into this new year, resolution number one for all of us, I want you all listening to this to commit to it. Don't fucking die. No matter what's going on, just don't die. Make it through if it's the worst day of your life, just make it to the end of it, because you don't know what's going to happen the next day. And I know this is like melodramatic and corny, and a lot of y'all listen to this just to talk about riffs and stuff like that. But whatever, if you don't like it, there'll be another episode where I talk about all kinds of stupidity. So hold out for that one, because I just feel like this needs to be said, man. I feel like people, especially in my position, a lot of people see me as a person that, I don't know, you probably think is successful in a lot of regards. And a lot of people publicly just bullshit all y'all. And, oh, everything's cool. Everything's great. Everything's easy. I'm the man, whatever. And that's true for literally nobody. Nobody. Like I said, you can't compare yourself to some fantastical, made up ideal that doesn't exist. And all this fucking social media and shit is doing is projecting a made up, fantastical ideal that doesn't exist. And it's got people striving for something that's not there. And it makes people feel like shit about themselves. So I think it's important for people in a public position like this to talk about this. So that's what I've done this episode. Might have been boring as shit. I don't know. You could be screaming at your phone or device as you were being bored to death, begging for me to talk about Big Riff Energy. I hope I didn't leave anything out about the Dan story. I don't know. He's just an example, and I'm an example that when it seems completely hopeless and death seems like the only option, it's not. You don't have to die. Other shit you can do. And again, if you're getting squirrely, man, all I'm doing these next couple weeks trying to secure a damn record deal, which I know I can do. And even if I don't, I'll put the shit out myself. Who cares? So I got free time. Write me, BIGRIFFENERGY@gmail.com. And we'll get through it. I'm going to talk about Pentagram today. Pentagram's come up quite a bit on this podcast because they got about as much Big Riff energy as anybody ever had. It also comes up as a example of questionable people making really cool music. So I have a few Pentagram records behind me. The first time I became aware of this band, I think I was about 13, 14 years old when Relapse put out a lot of the old 70s recordings. Right, so Pentagram was a band in the 70s, early 70s, really the American Black Sabbath. And yeah, that collection is right here behind me, called First Daze Here. They also did a First Daze Here 2, and I have that. And on the inside of that is the original. He played guitar first and then moved to drums. Jeff O'Keefe had his mailing address in there, and I sent him the very first Spirit Adrift recordings. And he wrote me an email. It was super awesome. I think the guy is significantly overlooked when it comes to his importance in the history of the band Pentagram. So First Daze Here compiles some of these recordings from the 70s era of Pentagram. If any of you have seen the Bobby Liebling documentary, you know he's like a very troubled guy. I make fun of him on here because I feel like when you've done some of the things that he's done, you open yourself up to being made fun of. At the same time, it's like I try to be empathetic to people that struggle with substance abuse, and that guy certainly has throughout his life. And that shit's not funny. It's that shit is really not funny. Even though I'm laughing, I don't know why I'm laughing. It ain't funny. I'm just hearing his voice yelling on that documentary. It's quite a sight. But I often wonder what would have happened had that guy ever gotten his shit together back in the day. And as much as I want to shit on the guy for like crossing the line with certain behaviors that I think are like irredeemable, as far as his talent and his creativity and his songwriting prowess, I think if he had had his shit together, people would be mentioning him in the same breath as like the dudes in the Rolling Stones or the dudes in Black Sabbath or whatever. I mean, I think he's one of the most talented songwriters that rock and roll has ever known. Hurts me to say that because I don't know him, but I don't fucking like him. So that's how talented he is I can't even deny it as much as I want to. But so I don't know, 14, 15 years old by the time I hear this First Daze here. And man, that 70s Pentagram stuff is really good. I would imagine everybody listening has heard it, but it's somewhere between early Black Sabbath and like Sticky Fingers era Rolling Stones. So good. His melodic sensibilities are just as good as it gets. So we were jamming that every day. I remember by the time I had my driver's license, that CD just lived in my car. I listened to it every day. Super inspiring. One of those collections of songs that I know every second of every guitar part and vocal and weird little mistakes and inconsistencies. But they just couldn't get their shit together. It's my understanding that every time there was some sort of opportunity for the band, Bobby would inevitably fuck it up. And, they famously auditioned for Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons from Kiss, who basically told them, your music is good, but you're too fucking ugly. Which is not a lie. So Pentagram fell apart for the first time of many, many times. I have another couple records behind me. The first proper Pentagram album, Relentless, and the second proper Pentagram album, Day of Reckoning. I didn't know about this version of the band until way later. I only really was interested in 70s Pentagram. I think maybe because of nostalgic purposes, I still prefer the 70s Pentagram stuff. But the 80s Pentagram stuff is really, really heavy. First wave doom metal. I mean, they've sort of established what doom metal is. And this version of the band is, the combination of Bobby Liebling and then Victor Griffin, the guitar player, Joe Hasselvander, the drummer. They were playing in Death Row at the time, and they kind of joined forces, took some of Victor's songs, took some of Bobby's songs. Joe Hasselvander, he's a good songwriter too. He's got riffs as well, plays every instrument. And this is almost like a super group, to me at least. I don't think any of the guys were famous or well known outside of their specific circles for it to be considered to most people a super group, but to people that like Big Riff Energy, 100% a super group. And I've listened to the first proper Pentagram album, Relentless, probably the most, with the exception of the 70s stuff. But lately I've been listening to Day of Reckoning a lot. And be careful if you're looking for this album, because the more recent versions of it, they had a different drummer on the original version, and then some bullshit probably went down. I don't know. I haven't looked into it, but I would imagine some typical Bobby Liebling drama. And for whatever reason, they brought Joe Hasselvander in later to re-record the drums. The only problem is I don't think the original shit was recorded to a click. And so it makes Joe Hasselvander sound like a really bad drummer at times. He's like completely missing the downbeats and rushing. And but I can't imagine what it would be like to try to track drums to a bunch of slop dicks that weren't playing to a click, they were probably in a room together when they recorded the original version. So, I mean, it's almost an impossible task to try to reconcile the changes in feel and time signature and stuff like that. But Day of Reckoning is a great album. I highly recommend listening to the original version. No offense to Hasselvander. But yeah, I'll talk about some highlights from these three albums. Recommended songs off of First Daze here. The opening song, Forever My Queen. I like that version the best. They re-recorded it on Review Your Choices, which came out in like 99 or something. So the thing about Pentagram is Bobby had like a stockpile of songs from the 70s, and they recorded a lot of those songs back then, but then a lot of them would end up being re-recorded with the heavier kind of style, like the real traditional doom metal style, on later recordings. But my favorite version of Forever My Queen is on First Daze here from the early 70s. So that's a highlight. In a really heavy-handed show of foreshadowing, I'm going to recommend the song $20 Spin from First Daze here. From Relentless, Bobby wrote one of the greatest, most straightforward, I would say perfect rock songs I've ever heard. Sign of the Wolf, parentheses, Pentagram. Or it might be called Pentagram, parentheses, Sign of the Wolf. I can't remember. If you want to hear what a perfect song is, to me, as far as big riffs and just a perfect rock song, yeah, Sign of the Wolf. All Your Sins is a great song. I think that's a Victor Griffin song. And on Day of Reckoning, I'm going to shout out Evil Seed. That's a Victor Griffin song. Really good. Pretty sure that one's about kicking opioids. And man, it's real. Man, it is real. There's a moment on that song where Bobby literally just goes, and you feel the man's pain. So I might rip on him a lot, but I do respect Bobby Liebling's talents a great deal. I also like the song Broken Vows from that record. But man, any of the 70s Pentagram stuff or the first 4 proper records, I'm going to say, I mean, all their records are pretty good, but I'm going to say Relentless, Day of Reckoning. What's the other one, man? I like Review Your Choices. I just got the other one. Hang on. Fucking poser. Be Forewarned. Yeah. Relentless, Day of Reckoning, Be Forewarned, and Review Your Choices. Review Your Choices is kind of like the unsung gem of their catalog. That one's just Bobby Liebling and Joe Hasselvander. And it is really weird sounding and really cool. Bobby sounds like Kermit the Frog on that record, but it's in a good way somehow. So yeah, you won't be hearing from me for the next couple weeks. Doing something I haven't done in a long time, trying to secure a record deal. Don't ask me about the new project because I'm not going to say another word about it. And I think even when it comes out, one of my, shall we say, resolutions is I'm not going to talk about it because I'm so tired of being turned into bullshit clickbait and being taken out of context and being super sincere and honest about the music that I'm making. And the people that are writing about it are completely misconstruing what I'm saying intentionally, or just completely incapable of understanding what I mean. So I think the safer bet is to not talk about your own music. So moving forward, that's going to be one of my resolutions. The next time you hear anything about this stuff is the day that a song is released. And I'm excited. Despite battling the crippling self-doubt that all of us creative types feel, I think I'm onto something. And it's been testing pretty good with the target demographics, shall we say. So write me, BigRiffEnergy@gmail.com if you're feeling squirrely. Just make it to the first, man, and you'll probably start feeling better. I'm not going to say 2024 is our year, because that doesn't mean shit in the real world. So I will say I'll see you in 2024 for the next episode, and we're almost to episode 50. I think I should do like a giveaway or something. Anyway, I hope I didn't bore the shit out of you with this. Shout out to my friend Dan. We're still here, goddammit. Stronger than death, bro. Zach Wilde style. All right, see y'all in 2024, and keep me in your thoughts and prayers for securing this record deal. Love you guys.